Well, hello there, Retro PC Derm. Chris here with another video, and this one's like a mixed emotions video. So, a while back, like 2 years ago, I think it's going on now from the time that this video is going live. I picked up bought a bunch of like used computer stuff from someone in nearby. They were up in Peterborough, and it included these two Dell laptops. These are Dell Inspiron 3500 laptops, so Pentium II era Windows 98 machines. And I was really interested because he had said, oh, well, he had one of these and he had bought a parts machine and he wanted to like transfer things over to it because I guess this must have been his original. It had died. The board doesn't boot at all. So he bought a replacement, but the replacement was in bad shape and he wanted to transfer parts over anyways. So he never got around to it. I figured, hey, you know what? He included it as part of this, kind of bundle of parts. So I thought this would be a fun project for me to do the transfer. And while I guess I kind of successfully did the transfer, the case, the shell that this is in, is really not in good shape. In both cases, both of these laptops, just the plastic on this is so brittle. I mean, you can see on this one where it's just, this is the, I guess the old case, the plastic on some of these are just falling apart. They were in really bad shape. Here's the one that works. You can see it's a little bit better, but you can see like this broken plastic here. It's very brittle around the infrared port. It doesn't stick properly. This part here doesn't stay on the clip for the LCD. It's very weak. And the two little plastic clips here that are supposed to hold this on, they're not in good shape. But unfortunately, the backing on this one that does still work, the rest of this frame is in really bad shape. So it's like, I'm damned if I do with one or the other. So I'll take this off here and we can take a look at this, this laptop. Otherwise, it's in okay shape. It's got these removable pieces here where you can kind of slide out your components. So this would be a slot where you could put your CD-ROM drive or the floppy disk drive. The CD-ROM drive still works, but the floppy drive has got issues. It's in the other machine right now. And then these clips to kind of go when stuff goes back in are not, like they're not staying the way they're supposed to anymore. Here we can remove the battery from the unit, right? And then there's a spot here where the hard drive goes. Can you see that there? So if I unscrew here, we'll spin this out, and then we can remove our hard drive, and it's in this caddy here. It just takes a standard 2.5-inch IDE drive. So right now I've got a 20 gig drive in here, and it's fine. It's a clean drive. And then it has this kind of adapter kit, so you can slide that into the slot, and I'll show you here when we lift it up. You can kind of see where that goes down to in the back of the unit. So it's pretty easy in terms of getting access to those core components to be able to upgrade or replace anything. But the plastics around all of this, like the actual case framing, the chassis or whatever you want to call it, it's in really bad shape. And so I did the best I could with I took both of the machines apart as much as I could understand without destroying them even more. Picked the best, bottom and top and other pieces that I could. Tried to do some repair with some glue and do the best I could to get them to run properly. Here we show off our memory slots here. So there's a pair of sewed-in memory slots right on the bottom. I have two 64 megabyte slots, memory DIMMs here. So 128 megabytes of RAM for a Windows 98 machine, which is a perfectly acceptable amount of memory. I noticed that this memory case piece here, it seems to stand up a little bit, and it's on both of them. Like you can see can you see the noticeable, like it stands up from it's not completely flush. with the bottom of the laptop. And I'm not sure if that's a design thing or if it's another problem, but it's okay because you do have the rubber legs still on here that it does lift it off, so you're not resting on this lid and maybe applying pressure to the memory DIMMs that you don't need to be. Looking on the back of the system here, we do have a pretty decent complement. There's an expansion port here, which would have been, I guess, for like a docking station or replicator. We have VGA out, serial port, and parallel port, which is the kind of the standard that you would want. No modem in this, but we do have a PC card slot in the side, which, you know, we can add in an Ethernet card into this so we can get networking capability to, you know, FTP files in and out. And then we've got audio ports, our power connector, we've got speakers on both sides, so stereo speakers, and then a single USB port, and our mouse keyboard port, so you can do a mouse or keyboard, or you can get one of those Y splitters and have both if you want to, and then a Kensington lock. When we flip it open, and I'll be ginger here as well, because while the hinges on this are fine, the plastics around the frame here, again, as I said, they're not in good shape at all on either of them. So I, you know, kind of picked the best I could, but they're not great. Keyboard is relatively comfortable to type on, but it's not awesome. The touchpad's pretty small, and for the buttons, the right mouse button still works fine. The left mouse button, there's plastics that are broken underneath the button here, so it's not like it sinks down on the left-hand side. If you can, like, I don't know if you can't quite see that. It's not, it doesn't spring back up, right? Where you click down here, it clicks okay, but on this side it won't click anymore, which means sometimes you miss your left mouse clicks, which is not a good experience, obviously. But thankfully, you have that USB port and PS2 port, so you can plug an external mouse in and alleviate the problem of this button not working properly. So that's where, you know, kind of we sit in terms of the issues with it, which is why it's kind of a mixed bag, that it works, it's fine, but, you know, this isn't the kind of like retro or vintage laptop experience that you are going to be, you know, taking with you anywhere. It's almost like, well, if you're going to have this, maybe it's going to be set up somewhere and it's going to be sitting aside and you're never going to move it again. So you don't have to worry about the plastics breaking or deteriorating anymore while you're trying to run with it, which is unfortunate because the idea of being able to have something like this set up to be able to run like an old, you know, CNC machine or something that still needs a Windows 98 environment and a serial port. I don't know how durable a machine like this is going to be able to last for that. Yeah, so what is kind of cool is the fact that, you know, it still works, and the fact that we can even get a little bit of battery power left. So we're booting up without being plugged in. You can kind of see the screen coming up there. Maybe what I'll do is I'll flip off the light here, and we can see our screen view is still coming in pretty good. That washed out look is part of the splash screen. It's not great, but you can see Windows is loading up. I'm going to try and not move the screen around too much, or the laptop around too much, because it is that old IDE hard drive, which isn't going to be very, very happy with vibrations and the such and the like. Yeah, so it does boot. It does work. And what I'll do maybe is I'll flip the camera around in front, maybe, so it'll be in front of the screen here, and we can not be doing this top-down view to try and look at what's going on in Windows. It's a little uncomfortable having it like leaning up against me while it's going. But as you can see, Windows does boot up and loads properly on here, and it runs well for what it is. So we'll get this moved around, and I'll show the specs off on the system as well. If you weren't aware, Hardware Info, which is a monitoring or info tool that you can download off the internet. The 32-bit version of this will run on Windows 98, which is what we have up here. So spec-wise, we've got the Pentium II processor. It is a 400 megahertz Pentium II mobile from the Dixon product line. And this board is a 440BX/ZX board. So it's pretty decent in terms of performance, I guess. Again, being a mobile processor, there's some maybe a little bit of cut down on power, obviously. And then for your AV capability, this has got a Neo Magic chipset in it, which historically I've found, you know, you're kind of hit and miss in terms of the performance on these cards. It's doing both your audio and your sound, this chipset, and I'm not sure if it's broken up into two chips or if it's a combo or whatever, but so you've got the Neomagic Magic Media 256 video adapter, or NM2200. If I move over to the system properties here, the device manager, you can see this Neomagic Magic Media 256 AV, and there's a Magic Media 256 AV audio or 3DX sound system. So I think it's like a combo chip, which there were a couple companies back in this time period that were doing these types of thing. I can't remember if Matrox might have had something similar. And then there was a Turtle Beach might have done these combos. And I want to say that whatever company made the M-Wave cards for IBM had a similar setup as well, where they did this kind of combo thing, and it was really popular either on really cheap desktops or on laptops where you wanted to be able to cut down components. But obviously it's not the best. But the good thing is there is pretty decent integrated driver support on this. So if you go into DOS mode, the DOS audio capability is native. So you can get, you know, you could go and play Doom in DOS mode and the sound just works without having to do any special funky setup stuff. But performance-wise, the system is okay. You're not getting great 3D performance out of this. So where it's great for doing like DOS-type games, when I tried out playing a game like Half-Life, the Half-Life demo on this, the performance was terrible, right? Like you got to run it at a really low resolution and go to software rendering essentially, and it gives much less than 30 frames per second. So not an excellent experience, but if you needed a machine that was going to run Windows 98 and didn't take up a lot of space, you could easily set up a machine like this, you know, in a back office area running like I said, if you had like an old milling device or CNC router or something that required a serial port connection and old 16-bit or 32-bit software that you can't run on a modern machine. I've had a couple people who've inquired about these types of machines in the past, and this could be a good fit for that type of environment. So I'll probably be looking to find a new home for this machine in the future. What I'm probably going to do is, if I'm going to list it to sell it or something, I'll list both of them together, because I think there could be some possibility, as you know, if stuff starts to decay even more on these, you might need to take the older currently more broken components or, you know, case parts and transfer them back over. You know, it could be someone wants to keep around and work on a little bit more. But yeah, it's really a shame that sometimes just the type of plastic that was used on some of these older machines, sometimes they survive really well, and other times like this one, the plastic just doesn't last. Like they just don't survive, and they just start falling apart and getting really brittle. So it's unfortunate, but at least the system does still work. So there is some life left in it, that someone who wants to get some Windows 98 nostalgia and some DOS gaming nostalgia, they can certainly take advantage of with this machine. And kind of cool that, you know, the battery even still holds some charge. Is kind of fun. It's probably not the original battery that this was originally sold with in the late 90s. Maybe someone bought a replacement battery a couple years later, and that's why it's managed to have some life. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. If you had one of these machines, you know, share your experience with it or your memories of it in the comments down below. If you've got any ideas or experience with these brittle old plastics in terms of ways to be able to repair them or refresh them. I know there's some like creams you can buy to like massage into the plastics to try and like renew them and give them more life. I didn't have that obviously here to be able to work on these, and some of these pieces were just so far gone that it was hard to do. Ideas you have to do things like how to strengthen those little plastic clips at the top so that this hinge mechanism, you know, which has got a pretty strong spring in it, doesn't pop itself out every time I open up the laptop. Would appreciate that those pointers as well if you have those kinds of experiences. But as always, I hope you are staying safe and healthy, and we'll catch you in the next one.